All right. Hello, chess friends, and welcome back. Today we have a really awesome guest here today. Please do introduce yourself. Who do we have here?
My name is Shaaketh Sivakumar. I'm 12 years old and I've been playing chess for 4 years, or maybe 5 years. My ELO is like close to 2130, and
Hey, thank you so much for being here, Shaaketh. And Shaaketh happens to be 12 years old, like he said. And in this game, we have a very special treat. Shaaketh was able to beat 2019 US Women's Champion Jennifer Yu. And in this game, we hope to do some sort of live analysis and discussion of the game, try to get into the mind of Shaaketh and try to see how this game went down, some key concepts, and we all hope you enjoy.
Shut up and sit down.
All right, so this game started out as an accelerated London system, right? 1d4. Black continues with d5, bishop to f4, knight to f6, e3. Just a quick question, Shaaketh. So why do you play the accelerated London system? What's your inspiration for using this opening?
so first of all, my brother has been playing it and he inspired me to play this. And second of all, my coaches have told me this is a very nice line to like, if you can at least, if you want best results, and if you want to get, if you never want to get a worse position out of the opening, this is the opening you want to play.
Awesome.
But in certain situations, black can equalize if he has the right setup.
Black cannot equalize when he has the right setup. And is there like certain types of ideas that you're trying to go for in this particular opening?
Of course, at some point in the classic London system, the goal is to go like knight f3, knight e5, knight d2, bishop d3, h4, get some attack going.
Right. So you said knight f3, knight e5, h4.
So the classic setup is like knight f3, knight d2, bishop d3, and if they go c5, you always play c3. And then if they go for like certain setups like e6, bishop e7, then you go for like knight e5, and at some point you can even go for Stonewall with like bishop g3, f4, and stuff.
Absolutely. And I think I think that's actually the setup you played in this game, right? Knight to f3, knight to d2, bishop to g3. Yeah, so let's actually check that out here. So black continues with e6. I think the idea here is just to, develop the bishop to d6, occupy the d6 square, hopefully put some pressure on f4. White continues here, knight to d2. So basically going with the setup that you were just talking about. Bishop to d6, of course, bishop to g3, very critical move, right? Don't want to double up the pawn structure over here. And if bishop takes g3, of course, h takes g3 is no more reply.
And then castling would be a problem because of the open h file.
Exactly. So after this, I believe Jennifer continues with c5, right? So I believe this is opening theory, just putting pressure on the d4 pawn. Well supported by e3, but you continue with c3, solidifying the center. Makes sense. Black continues here with castles, all right? Knight to f3, simple developing move, right? Just going a part of the London system, hoping to control key squares like e5, bishop, pawn, standard opening theory so far. So here, I believe black continues with b6, looking to fianchetto the bishop to b7, although there is also ideas with the sneaky bishop to a6, which I think is
because
really
otherwise my light squared bishop would be a pain to defend with some ideas of f4, bishop h4, and coming in for your attack.
Absolutely. And your light square bishop, positionally speaking, is quite a big pain because if you look at the pawn structure, white's primary pawns are on dark squares, right? So if black can hope to exchange this light squared bishop, it would, sort of weaken up your light squared pawn structure as well. So I think bishop to a6 is definitely a move white should be watching out for in the future.
And that's exactly what happened in the game. So.
And that's what they played, yeah. So after bishop to d3, black does play bishop to a6 here. Again, great move. White is forced to take here, right? I think the alternative could have been bishop c2, but then you allow Black's bishop to get this open diagonal, and you can't really castle your king.
Yeah.
So after this, bishop takes a6, knight takes a6, queen to e2, nice move. Looking to attack the knight on a6, controlling some of the key light squares like d3, and also, I like this. You're not necessarily showing your cards either, right? Is white going to castle queenside? Is white going to castle kingside? Not necessarily.
I mean, at this point, once you trade off the light square bishops, it's no question you have to castle kingside. That's the
Fair
point.
enough. Yeah, and that's true too, because I think black has advanced queenside pawns as well, so it's a possibility of a queenside attack. So white's best option would be to castle kingside here too. Black plays knight to c7, rook to d1. So Saket, why did you play rook to d1 in this position?
So I have some nice ideas of opening the center by playing e4 or taking c5 and then e4. Also c4 could be a possibility. It's just very flexible because I've also ideas of knight e5. I can castle, I can play bishop h4. It's just I'm playing very flexibly, so my opponent has no clue what I'm doing.
Yeah, no, that's a great reason. And I think you're absolutely right here. If you can play e4, pawn takes e4, knight takes e4, right? This d file is super dangerous for black, like you mentioned, right? Imagine being able to put pressure on the bishop on d6, the queen on d8, all lining up on the rook on d1. A very nice, quiet move, I would say. Not really revealing your cards just yet. Letting black stay in the question. Not so sure. Queen to e7. White plays castles, of course. Knight to d7. Knight to e5.
Yeah, and at this point, I was thinking whether to go for e4 or to go for knight e5, but then I decided to go for knight e5 because my threat is knight c6 actually and win the bishop. So either he takes, or actually she missed a nice move because I feel like taking is a mistake. She could have played rook e8. The point is if knight c6, she has queen f8, and she's probably equal there, so just
Yes.
continue normally.
Yeah, rook d8 is a great square. Nice little hiding spot for the queen. I do agree. I think bishop takes e5 here, which is actually what was played in the game, is a mistake. Positionally speaking, black does weaken up key dark squares. The bishop was quite important, and the tension in the center has also been released. And if you look at these knights on d7 and c6, right, or c7, excuse me, they don't have many good squares to actually move to. Like, is this knight going to be moving to f6? No, can't move here or here or here. So I feel like black definitely is a little bit restricted in their possible play here. And I like white's bishop on g3 sitting here, defending the pawn on e5, causing a nuisance.
Yes, this bishop on g3 is often called the London bishop. It explains it for itself because at this point she has to push the f-pawn to create squares for a piece to go to and activate some play. So, and that's what she does. And then my bishop gets activated.
Absolutely. f5, I believe, is what happens in the game. Necessary to get control over this f6 square after e takes f6, knight takes f6. But I mean, that even works in your favor, right? Like this bishop again is now very powerful. You've just removed your double pawns. You have the open diagonal. That's quite nice for you. So moving forward, e4. This is a really nice move, I think. This is awesome. I mean, the idea of pushing e4, putting critical pressure on the d5 square, as well as looking to open up the e file and weaken up black squares, particularly in this region, is also nice as well. So I think that's a very strong move here. Of course, positionally speaking, if pawn takes e4, that's a mistake. Knight takes e4, knight takes e4, and queen takes e4. Black is left
and
with
the pawn on e6 is like a dead pawn.
It's like a dead pawn. There's no way that's going to survive. The knight on c7 is embarrassed. What is it doing there, right?
Yeah.
All right, so queen to f7, trying to get off that e file. C4, nice. So just as a question, why did you allow black to get this past d pawn? Were you afraid?
I actually provoked it because I felt that I have ideas of e5 and then the d6 square would be weak and I can continue with the pawn storm in the future. And I would say the pawn on d4 just gives me outposts for my knight and other pieces to sit on, and it will never go forward unless it's in an endgame.
Fair enough. Yeah, I think d4 is only dangerous if black can play e5, but as you rightly mentioned, white's going to play e5 themselves, trying to boot this knight off of the f6 square so that their knight, so your knight can actually basically move to e4, control that square, key outpost on d6 as well. So absolutely. So c4, putting the question on the pawn on d5. Black plays pawn to d4 here. After pawn to d4, white continues with e5, as according to plan, knight to h5. Looking to tap on this bishop on g3, f4. Another reason why I like the f4 move is because you might have ideas sometime in the future, maybe f5 later on, not necessarily right now, but I do like the idea.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah,
Yeah. And at some point, I can even go like bishop h4 g4 just in the future, so I can get
exactly,
my pawn
exactly.
rolling.
And the queen is on the f file as well, so opening up your rook file makes absolute sense here. So f4 is nice. I think black plays queen to g6, queen to e4. So why the exchange of queens in this position?
So actually, at this point, I was just settling for a slightly better position and hoping to outplay her in the endgame by getting my pawns rolling and stuff. But the funny thing is, after this move, I realized that I didn't really want to go to the endgame and I wanted my knight on e4. So that's why the next move I actually went back to f3 with my queen.
I see. I see. I also think there's another added benefit of playing queen to f3. So black plays queen to f5 here, right? Queen to f3. I like how you're putting pressure on the knight on h5 with this queen on f3, because this knight really doesn't have many squares. If you think about it, f6 is gone, f4 is protected. As soon as you do move this bishop, right? Let's say to f2, oh, you can't move it to f2, excuse me. You move it to h4, you do have ideas of like g4, which I believe is what you tried doing in the game, which is nice. This knight on h5, not very effective standing there on the rim.
Unfortunately, it's attacking f4, so bishop h4 right now is not possible.
Right, right, exactly. So here you played rook. So here black played rook to d8, bishop to h4.
And now the rook is hit.
Exactly. The rook is hit, very key tempo. In that case, I think rook to d8 might have been a mistake, allowing bishop to h4, yeah. Right?
Otherwise, my plan was just to go knight e4, and like honestly, I feel like she's just getting squeezed there.
Yeah, I mean, you go knight to e4, like knight to d6. Well, you're gonna have to play knight to e8. This is obviously bad news for black, right?
Yeah.
This is not good.
I feel like rook d8 could have been a good idea if there was no bishop h4, because her idea may have been to come in like this.
Yeah, d3, control of the d4, absolutely. And this rook, applying pressure on f4, that could be quite annoying. And even c4 for that matter. So black here continues rook to, yeah, so that sort of defeats the purpose of rook to d8, right? If you have to move it away from the file. Bishop to g5. Interpose between the queen, the knight, preparing ideas of g4, right? h6, bishop takes, or sorry, g4, attacking the queen, knight, queen to c2, and now bishop takes h6. I like this move, just a little intermediate move in between, basically destroying black's kingside pawn structure, opening up the g file. And I mean, once you're going to take this knight on h5, white is up a pawn, and the open g file could be possibility for the attack on black.
Yeah, so when I played bishop g5, I had to see this because it's very critical. Otherwise, my queen side will just fall off. So what I was thinking here is this point was after bishop takes h6.
Yep.
There's knight f4, bishop f4, g5, and then I found queen e4. So the point is he's forced to take, otherwise I win a piece. Then take, and whatever he takes with, I'll just take back if he takes with the rook, and then I get knight f6 fork.
Yep, absolutely. So you want to walk through that so everybody can see. So basically, so after knight takes f4, saying bishop takes f4, bishop takes f4, g5, followed by playing queen to e4. Queen to e4, queen takes e4, knight takes e4. Let's say they play pawn takes f4. How would you respond here?
Knight f6.
Knight f6, okay. King to g7, and then of course knight takes e8. Knight takes e8, knight takes e8. Like there's no question. This f4 pawn is gonna fall. Yeah, exactly, right. And once that f4 pawn falls, I mean, you have these guys rolling down. This is bad for black. They also are up the exchange. This is nice. So let's go back. Right over here. Bishop takes h6, pawn takes h5, easy. Rook to e7, king to h1, open g file, rook to g7, rook to g1, knight e4.
And the rest is just a matter of technique. How do you mate the king?
Yeah. I mean, like your position is so dominating here, I feel. Like this knight has not moved from c7 for God knows how long, right? It's doing absolutely nothing in defending the king. Your knight has clear avenues towards f6. And conveniently, this queen is now blocked from ever reaching back to the king's side for the king's defense. Really nice move with knight e4. So really well done here. This is really nice.
And the plan comes together, basically.
Exactly. It's basically all the pieces are falling apart. Black's position is falling apart. So let's see what happens next. Knight to e8, knight to f6, nice. I think this is just pure calculation at this point, right? Knight takes f6, pawn takes f6, rook takes f6, rook takes, king takes, rook g1 check, king to f7, queen to b7 check, king to f8, queen to g7.
Also, a point is not to take here because then you're allowing perpetual, which is very annoying.
Yep. Rook to f8, queen takes e6, king to d8, queen to d6. So I think this is absolutely winning here. But I would just recommend, instead of queen takes e6 here, is there a more powerful move here?
Oh, in this position?
Yeah.
I think queen d5 is mate, actually.
Yeah, I think if queen to d5, because the idea is if queen to d5, right, and black continues with like king to c8, you have ideas of queen to e8, king here, and then suddenly rook to g7, right?
Yeah, that'll be mate. I mean, honestly, I just felt like giving check and taking the rook, and once I saw that it's over because of king e8, rook e1, that's going to be mate.
Yeah, I agree. This is tough. But yeah, I think after this point, queen to d6, black resigns here, and I mean, the position it's practically over at this point. White's just about to dominate. But I just want to say, Shaaketh, this was a really amazing game. Just the way you were able to handle the London system, more so than tactical game. I really enjoyed some of the positional ideas as well that you employed here. Right, like for instance, in the game when you played e4 followed by playing c4, you rightly mentioned you were trying to provoke d4 so then you could play e5 and control the e4 square. And as we remember, like the knight on d2 going to e4 was able to effectively block the queen, and it was just a monster knight killing black's position, right? And
the knight was worth more than his rook.
Yeah, right. Like what were the rooks doing there on f7, g7? Very passive position, I feel.
At some point, I actually didn't want to go knight d6 because rook takes d6. So
yeah. And it's a good thing you didn't, because that knight eventually helped you win the kingside attack later on in the game. So that was really cool. So yeah, thank you so much, Shaaketh, for sharing that game. And hopefully next time we can look at one of your other games where you actually beat a grandmaster. And I think that would be really cool to check out. So if you're watching this, you enjoyed this analysis, please do stay tuned for that next game. And of course, thank you so much. Please do like, share, and subscribe, and bye for now.